Every new author has a story to claim. Sit back, listen to conversation between Terry Lynn and new authors on the rise, and let the journey begin.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to my podcast, Conversations Between Terry Lynn and New Authors. On this episode, I'm talking with my friend who is a children's book author, Diane Klein. But I call her Dee. She wrote a couple of chapter books for tween and a children's picture book for 5 to 8-year-olds. Welcome, Dee.
Morning, and thank you for having me on.
Please tell us about your writing and your first book.
I'm what they call a pantser, and that means that I just kind of write spontaneously. I really enjoy writing whatever comes into my head. I might have a sense of a beginning, middle, and end, but I almost never know how I'm going to get there. My co-author for the Orb series is Tim Knight, and he lives in England, actually, and we alternated writing chapters. So it was a shared writing project. I knew my chapter and I would send it to him, and then he read it and he added the next chapter. So we never really knew exactly what the other person was going to write. It was a blast. It was actually, we were so creative in the process. It was so much fun. We didn't know exactly how it would end until we wrote the very end ourselves, really at the end. And it turned out that our beta readers loved it for both of the books that we wrote.
I'm hesitant to admit this, but guess what? I had to look up what a pantser was. From my research, I found out surprisingly that I was also a pantser. Can you believe it?
That's really funny.
I was the only person who wrote without plotting first. So thank you, Dee, for helping me figure out that the way I write stories actually has a name for it.
My pleasure. I didn't realize it had a name either until I got into the writing group. And I learned that there are two types of writers. There's plotters, and those are the ones that plot every single thing out and have a whole story map and everything. And then the other kind, which is me and us, is a pantser. And I thought, all right, what's the expression, by the skin of your pants, or I don't know, by the seat of your pants. You fly by the seat of your pants, and write by the seat of your pants. And I find myself being much more creative writing that way. I feel stilted when I have a whole plot and storyline put out. So it works for us. Yay!
Yeah, it works for us. I'm glad to hear I'm not the only one who writes that way. Yippee! What inspired you to write children's books?
It's interesting. There were two things. Tim, my co-author on the Orb series, and I used to actually just tell each other stories, all kinds of different stories. We became friends online through a writing group. We were talking about strange creatures around the world. Tim has a fascination with mystical creatures and mythical creatures. And he asked me if there was any creature in Pennsylvania. And I said, I don't know. So, of course, he looked it up and he found that there was a mythical creature called the squonk. And we got to talking about that. And we said, oh, let's write a book. Out of nowhere, just let's write a book. And so that's how The Mystery of the Wailing Woods was born, from that. And it took us well over a year, close to 2 years actually, to write that first book because we were total babes in the woods. We didn't know what we were doing. And again, we were doing back and forth. But we had so much fun doing it. And we, ended up at the end with really a lovely story. It's not a long story. It's middle grade adventure, but it's a lovely story. And we had about 30 kids in that middle grade range read our book to give us feedback and to tell us, what do you think before we did anything, and we kept the end a secret. And we asked them, what do you want to see at the end? And they gave us all different kinds of ideas for the end. So, when the kids finally did get copies of the book, and they, of course, were all acknowledged in the book, they had no idea how it ended. And the feedback that we got was fabulous. They just adored the ending. And actually, all the adults that have read the book have adored the ending too. So that's kind of been a bonus. So that's how the first one got started. And then the second one that we wrote took us literally just like a couple months because we were so excited and so jazzed and we knew what we were doing. And the biggest challenge with the second one, or actually both, was that we were writing in two different styles of English. So he was writing in British English and I was writing in American English. And we had to make sure that our voices blended in the book enough so that people could read it and not go, so they could, it wasn't distinctly two different voices. Then my granddaughter asked me to write a story, and I thought, oh my God, I've never written a kid's book. I don't have a clue. And so I thought, well, what could I do? And one of the things that I love to do is travel. I've traveled all over the world. I've been really fortunate. I've visited all 7 continents. And so I thought, okay, let me take a couple of my experiences and see if I can put a story together for that. And that's where my first picture book, Percy's Amazing Adventure, came from. It came from a trip that I had to Australia and then a trip that I had to the Antarctic. And I decided to marry the penguins well, put the penguins together in an adventure from those 2 continents. And that's where that one came from. And it was so exciting to write the children's book. I was scared to death, didn't know what I was doing, found out what to do, and then just went crazy. And my grandkids love the story. And again, I had beta readers, had people read to their young children to tell me what they thought, and they were like, whoa, love the book. So I felt like it was a win.
What was it like seeing your story come to life through illustrations?
To be honest, when I saw it the first time, I cried. I literally sat and I cried because it was magical. It was overwhelming. Again, writing a picture book is so vastly different than writing a middle grade book. You have to say a whole story in 500 words, which I thought, how do you do that? Which again, just the illustrations are so important. Having a good illustrator is so important. Because they take your vision and they make it real. And Oliver was my illustrator at Get Your Book Illustrations. And he got me. I never actually physically talked to Oliver. Everything was done through the internet and everything. But he read the manuscript and he sent me his idea of the images of what Percy and Penny were going to look like. And he nailed it. He just absolutely got me and nailed it. And I felt so good about those illustrations that I just knew that he was going to create a beautiful book for me. And he did. It was amazing. He told the story beautifully in his illustrations. And so if your manuscript allows the illustrator to show what you're trying to say, then you've done it successfully. And when I saw Percy for the first, I just tears. I was just like sobbing. I was so excited and so relieved. And so, oh God, I felt so accomplished. Like, oh my, I did this. I actually did this. It was like, yay, when I gave birth to my first child, I did this. Yay. It was an overwhelming, wonderful feeling. So, and I'm looking forward to having it again with the next book.
Yeah, no words can explain the feeling when we see our stories come alive through illustrations.
Mm, correct.
What challenges have you faced as a new author, especially when it comes to publishing or marketing your book?
I'll be frank, marketing sucks. I really am not good at it. Um, I, I know it's important. Um, I, I feel like I should be able to have a handle on it and do it, and yet it just seems sometimes so overwhelming because there's so much that goes into it. So I would have to say that the biggest challenge has been marketing, and I need to do it better. That I can say I need to do it better. I can understand why people actually pay publicists because it's frustrating. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to put something together on Canva or one of the other platforms, and it doesn't turn out the way I want it to be, and I get nauseous and then I'm angry because it didn't turn out the way I wanted it. And yet at the same time, I'm like, okay, I'm not James Patterson. I don't have a company bankrolling me so that I can hire all these people. And I know that I can do this if I just do it in baby steps. That's really hard.
I totally get where you're coming from. So marketing really can feel like a beast. It's overwhelming, but you're doing exactly the right thing. Baby steps, trial and error, and celebrating the little wins. Keep going. You've got this.
Thanks, Terry. That helps.
Is there a scene or character in your book that's especially meaningful to you? Why?
In The Mystery of the Wailing Woods, I would say it's Callie, and that's because I used myself and my own personality traits as her model. As I was writing each part, I thought, what would I do? What would I do? And I went with a gut instinct, and it worked. Tim did the same thing with his character. And he modeled it after himself and thought, what would I do? What would I do? What would I do? And so as we went through the book, it was we were writing our own personalities as though we were actually having this adventure with the squonk. And I think that that added a great deal to the feeling, to the emotion in the story. Um, for that one. And in Percy, I loved Penny, who's my little fairy penguin, and that she had this total acceptance of Percy right away when she met him. And she was extremely kind and extremely positive. And the idea that new friends that you meet at different times and in different ways can help you in so many different ways. And so that's what I like most about in the Percy book. And I love Percy, but I really like Penny because she was cute and she just really embraced what she needed to do in the book.
I love that you based Kaylee on yourself. Those what would I do moments always bring such authenticity to a character. It's so special when a character makes you smile because you see yourself in her. And I absolutely agree about Penny. Her immediate kindness toward Percy was beautiful. Such a great reminder of how new friendships, especially the unexpected ones, can really change our lives for the better. What age group do you write for, and what draws you to that specific audience?
Well, the Orb Adventures are middle grade, and so that's 8 to 12-year-olds, fourth to sixth, seventh grade, basically. And the Steam for Littles is a series that I'm just starting to write, and those are for younger children, 4 to 8. And they're all going to be focused on concepts of nature and STEAM related things. So I'm by profession, I'm a speech and language pathologist and a teacher of the deaf. And I finished my career, I'm retired now, but I finished my career actually as a professor at a university, combining those two things. Having had 50 years of experience with children, very young children, and working with young children in terms of helping them develop their communication skills. And that's all forms of communication. It just felt right to write stories for that age group. Um, I can't imagine writing a romance novel. I really enjoy those two age groups. And the two series actually have things in common in that I like to share information. I like kids to read things and not realize that they're learning while they're reading. And that could be things like geography or geology or things having to do with nature or things having to do with uh, human emotions or things like that. And that just, I try to build elements of those into both of the series. And in some ways, both of the series also are going to be adventure type books, just on the different levels. The Orb series is much more middle school, oh my God, beat the dragon or help the dragon kind of thing. And the Steam for Littles is, oh, how can we help the worm? That kind of adventure. And so it's I just really enjoy writing for those two age groups. I think because I enjoy working with that age.
I totally adore those ages too. It's a blast to whip up stories for those lively age groups.
Definitely.
Both part of the Children's Book Mastery Program. Would you like to share your experience with it? What do you think people should know about it?
Okay. This group was literally life changing for me. I am not exaggerating at all. I belonged to a couple different groups. The first one that I joined was Women in Publishing. And that one was, whoa, taught me so much about everything that, I didn't know at all about getting published and things like that. And then after, as I said, after I had written the two middle grade and I came up with my Percy story, I was going to write it as a middle grade story. And my writing group said, nah, this should be a children's book. And I freaked out because I was like, I don't have a clue how to write a children's book. And one of the people there was also a member of Children's Book Mastery. And she said, you need to go to Children's Book Mastery because Karin does a boot camp. And I was like, okay, I could do that. And so I looked it up, and it just so happened that Karin was about to have a boot camp on writing your book. And I signed up for it. And literally, when you talk about boot camp, it's no kidding. A solid week, every day, 9 to 5, writing and learning how to write a children's picture book. And I was unbelievably ecstatic because at the end of the week, I had a dummy. I had written my book and I was astounded. I couldn't believe that I had my idea and that I was able to put it into compacted enough to put it into a picture book size. And so I just learned so much from that boot camp that at the end of the time, Karin had an offer where you could actually join the school. And I was like, well, that's a no-brainer. I don't even care how much it costs because I learned so much from the boot camp. I just felt like joining her school would do so much for me in terms of helping me become a better writer, a better author, a better publisher, a better everything. It's been worth every single penny, the time, the money, the effort. It's been a fantastic experience being part of that group. So when I say life-changing, I'm not kidding, because it really did change my ability to write, particularly children's books.
Joining CBM coaching was life-changing for me as well. I wrote each of my books in a weekend every time Karan had her picture book boot camp. She taught me a lot that I didn't know we, as children's book authors, need to know. I second that. It is well worth the time, money, and effort.
Yes.
Do you have any advice for other aspiring authors who are just starting out, especially in children's literature?
Uh, breathe. You have to breathe. You have to give yourself grace. You have to give yourself time. So many things can go awry, and it's important to find a way to find your calm place, to just have some of those reserves. Um, I think the first thing I really learned from Karin more than anything was to define your audience, that do enough reading in in the current literature of what you think you want to do to know who you want to write for, because it makes such a difference. And the perfect example was Percy. I mean, I was writing it initially as a middle grade story, and it would have been wrong. It absolutely would have been wrong as a middle grade story. And so if you know your audience, that really helps guide your reading. The second thing, which is so critical, is to surround yourself with a team. So, I've been on several different teams, and they all function differently, and yet they all bring something marvelous to the mix, in that you get so many great opinions. You get people that are honestly always on your side. They want you to do well. They want to support you. Um, they are willing to help you in any way that you're willing to accept the help. And so it's just so good to have people that are basically in the same boat as you, that they're writing and they're trying to do their best, and they're constantly cheering you on and giving you suggestions that you hadn't thought of, because you can't think of everything. And it's so true when they say, even with a picture book, write it and then put it away and come back to it, because you'll read it differently the next time and you'll go, no, I need to say this in a better way. And sometimes people pick up on that, and sometimes they don't, but many times you'll pick up on it yourself. So time was also an important element. Another one, and I know this is really hard for some people, but don't skimp if you can help it. Um, Pay a good editor. You can't be your own editor. And I use all kinds of pro writing tools to, help me get rid of my sticky words and sticky phrases and all that kind of stuff. But you need to have a real editor looking at your material and to say, this is perfect. The story flows, the dialogue is beautiful, the descriptions show, don't tell. You need an editor that really can be honest with you and tell you that. So don't skimp on getting a good editor. And it's the same thing with the illustrator. Hire the best illustrator that you can afford. And I know illustrators are expensive, and I did pay a lot for Percy, but oh my God, it was worth it. I mean, I can't, it was so worth it. If there's one thing that comment that I've received from literally every person that has ever laid eyes on that book, every single person has said, the illustrations are magnificent. Who was your illustrator? Every single person, and I'm talking hundreds of people at this point, who have looked at that book and said, oh my God, those illustrations are gorgeous. So it was worth it. And have I earned the money back on it? No, I haven't. Will I? I don't know, because I'm not going to be an Oprah Book Club bestseller. Do I care? No, because I need to have a product that is a reflection of me. And so that was, I did the best I could. I put the money together and I used a good illustrator. That's important. And it's the same thing with layout and design professionals. You want to use people that have a good track record. It's an art. It's an absolute art to lay out picture books. And I honestly never had a clue until I made one how hard it is because it is hard. It's hard to choose the right font. It's hard to choose the right style. It's hard. And the people that are layout and design professionals, that's what they do. I mean, that's what they're trained to do. And they're vested in your product. They want you to have the most beautiful product too, because you're going to then recommend that to other people, so it's more work for them. So I just think it's really important not to cut corners, that, you can have a really magnificent story. And then if you really cut corners on things, it can mean the difference between success and just another book that sits on Amazon that doesn't get someone's attention. So, and like I said, breathe, because this is so complicated. And your nerves get frayed. I won't lie. It gets very stressful sometimes and it gets emotional sometimes because it gets frustrating. And you just have to give yourself grace and breathe.
Absolutely.
If a child came up to you and said, I want to write a book too, what would you say to encourage them?
Do it. I would be like a cheerleader, like just do it. Draw your ideas, draw them, get yourself a notebook, and if nothing else, draw your ideas out, and then take your time and write down to the best of your ability. It doesn't matter how you spell. It doesn't matter what your writing looks like. It doesn't matter. You want to get your words down, get your good ideas out, and then ask for help. Ask your teacher, ask your family to read and to give you some ideas, and just do it, because I believe every single child's got a story in them, and they just have to be encouraged to communicate it, to get it out.
I love this advice. Just jump in and start creating, writing, and drawing your ideas is a great way to begin, and asking for help makes it even better. What an inspiring message for a young writer full of hope. What exciting projects or books are you working on next?
Well, I mentioned Bomi, and I'm really excited about Bomi. The book is it is actually, yes, in final edits, and the illustrator is looking at the dummy and starting to make sketches. So that's very exciting. And again, with my books, I'm trying to include diversity as well. So this book is taking place with a Korean young lady. And so everything will have an Asian flair to it rather than, American or whatever. And so there's going to be vocabulary that'll be used that may be Korean specific or something like that when it talks to the environment. And all of those things will be defined in the book. So in the back matter of the book. So I'm excited about that. I am also working on a third book in the series, which is about worms. And it's tentatively called The Wormsleys Go Wandering. And it's about a family of worms that move around in a potted plant. So they move all over the country, wherever they happen to be gifted, and get planted into a yard, and how they help in one way or another wherever it is that they're planted. So that's the Wormsley's book, and I've started writing that. And that one actually features my granddaughter. And so I've tried to put my grandchildren into roles in each of the books. And two of them are in Trouble with Tintagel, which is part of the Orb series. And then this third one is now going to be in the Worm book. And she's just like, so excited about being in the book and just excited about that. And then as far as the Orb Adventures, sadly, Tim has kind of lost his desire to co-write with me, and I'm still really bummed about that and trying to encourage him to come back and do it. But in the meantime, there's 2 books, and we always kind of thought there should be 4 books maybe in the series. And so what I thought was, I need to have an origin book for the orb. Where did this mystical orb come from? Where did it first show up? And so I'm writing the origin story now. And then immediately after that, the 4th story for the book will take place, I believe, in Finland. But those are the plans for the 2 series, and we'll see where we go from there.
Wow, you've got so many exciting projects in the works. Congrats!
Thank you. I'm really excited, and I'm hoping the Bomi is actually released at the end of this year, 2025. And then the others I'm looking towards 2026, and Finland would probably be 2027.
Where can people find you online, follow your journey?
www.dianekleinwrites.com is my writing website. But I'm always available if somebody sends me an email at dianekleinwrites@gmail.com, I will always respond to that email.
Thank you, Dee, for your information. I will put the link to your website in this episode's notes below.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dee, for talking with me on my podcast, Conversations Between Terry Lynn and New Authors on the Rise.
Thank you for having me on, Terry. This was wonderful. Thank you very much.
You are very welcome, Dee. Okay, my listeners, tune in next week when I talk with my friend Kathy Dye, who is a newly children's book author, and find out who threw her own advice back on her. Until then, happy reading with your kiddos.